Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Faji, I was reading about this article on symbolism. Okay, the definition in Wiki is, it says, symbolism is the practice of representing things by symbols or of investing things with a symbolic meaning or character. Means, when you look at symbols, they represent something. Now imagine we go throughout our daily life, we look at so many things, so many symbols without realizing that those symbols have actually come in our lives so many times, and now we are acquainted with it. And the moment we see, sometimes, for example, if I ask you, what do you see here?
Chelsea Football Club.
Chelsea.
Chelsea Football
Okay.
Club. Yes.
Okay, and then
Arsenal.
Arsenal.
Arsenal. Yes.
ठीक है जी.
Arsenal.
And of course, you have the greatest Liverpool.
You
greatest.
And then you have the team that
Manchester
plays with 13 players.
Now you're talking.
But let's say this one you still have logos with words written on.
Yeah.
ठीक
Okay.
है?
Yes.
But now you come to certain points where the logo has no words written, and yet if I show you this logo, you will say
Yeah. Olympics.
correct. How about this?
Motorola.
ठीक है?
Nokia.
Is
Connecting people.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just the two hands actually become a symbol of a company. The moment you look at this, the symbolism, the jedi philosophy hai, it says we don't have to speak much. The symbol speaks in itself.
True.
The moment you look at something, for example, you look at this.
Honda.
Aha. And
Toyota.
ठीक है? Now what you look?
Mercedes Benz.
Now if I go back and I say this and this, although to me they both are circles,
Right.
a Toyota and a Mercedes Benz, and yet you would say this one has more value.
Okay.
Agree?
Well, yeah, I can see
Hey.
how people. Yeah.
You know, when you look at a person coming out of a Mercedes car,
Okay.
you say, wow, this guy must be something.
Yes.
Huh?
He spent more.
Yeah, he spent more. But if you look at this one, not a bad car,
Yeah, of course
nice
not.
car, but you say, okay,
Yeah, of course.
this is in this league. Honda and Toyota, okay,
Yeah.
same league. But when you come to Mercedes, oh, you say, kya baat hai?
Yeah.
Eh gal.
Hmm.
What about this?
Khanda.
You say khanda, and
So what does it mean, really?
what does it mean?
What's the value?
Although, the moment you see this, what comes to mind?
Cars.
Khalsa comes to mind. But you ask me, if I were to compare between these two, I could be biased and say this one has much more value than this symbol, than a Mercedes symbol. Because to me, although Mercedes must have taken about 100 years, more than 100 years to build a brand.
Right.
They started off with cars, and you have vintage cars which are Mercedes brand. But Mercedes just didn't become a brand like that overnight. They had to use a craftsmanship and the designs and the durability and the customer service and uniqueness. And then you don't find a cheap price in Mercedes. You can't just go out and say I have a 200,000 part and I want to buy a Mercedes Benz. No, you can't, unless you want to buy a second-hand car. Okay, that's another thing. But that means those people who made this symbol what it is today had to spend a lot.
Yeah. They invested
बड़ा
a lot.
कुछ पाना पे है. They had to invest a lot. आज किसी बच्चे नु पूछो what is the meaning of this symbol? A lot of people might be able to say कि जी दो मीरी पीरी दिया कृपाना ने. In case you don't know,
Uh-huh.
okay,
I
this
knew
is मीरी पीरी दिया दो कृपाना.
Luckily, I knew that.
Yeah, and then this is khanda.
Yes.
These two Miri Piri Kirpana were adopted by Guru Hargobind Pacha.
Right.
The khanda was a symbol adopted by Guru Gobind Singh Ji.
Uh-huh.
And again he said this is also a two-edged sword. It cuts on both the edges. And then the circle that says Paramatma ik hai, uda na koi ant hai te na koi uski shuruaat hai. He is limitless. So in all, that is the sign of Akhanda. And a lot of people say this is so similar to the symbol on the Iranian flag.
Yes.
No, but it's very different. I checked it out.
Okay.
It's very, very different.
It's based on a lotus. If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
It's actually based on a lotus kind of thing. It looks similar, but the concept is very different.
Okay.
But ਮੇਰਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ how did this come about? And if you ask me, the prestige behind this symbol is not because somebody drew it well or somebody designed it well. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਾਲਣਾ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕਾਲੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ, the people who actually shed blood and sweat to be able to make this what it is the history of the Sikhs.
Yes.
Now imagine if I show you the photographs. This is just a photograph of two brothers. This painting of Baba Garja Singh Bhota Singh. These two brothers. And the history says there was a time in Punjab after Guru Gobind Singh Ji passed away. There was a time after about 30-40 years, the Mughals were able to eliminate Sikhs from Punjab, in a way. Sikhs started hiding in jungles because ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਲ ਪੈ ਗਏ ਸਨ. There was a price for a Sikh head.
Okay.
You get a Sikh head, you get so many rupees for that. And that was the real test time for Sikhs. Now imagine in those times, Sikhs were not totally eliminated, but they were hiding in other states or in jungles so that they didn't get killed. But these two brothers were passing a place and certain people were talking. And in their discussion they were saying कि Sikh khatam ho gaye ne. Sikhs are no more.
Right.
These two brothers said, this is bad news. If this news spreads like this, that Sikh khatam ho gaye ne, people will spread this news and we need to counter it. So what did they do? They went on the main road, they put up a Khalsa tax. Amy! आख्या नहीं एदी announcement होनी जरूरी है कि खालसा मरिया नहीं है. And when the people came to know कि खालसा टैक्स लिता जा रहा है एक रोड दे उत्ते, they told, of course the complaint was supposed to go to the government.
Yes.
When the police came to know, that is the soldiers of the Hukumat, they went there, sent the army to check what is going on, and these two brothers were there. And imagine, they knew that they are going to die.
Yeah, for sure.
And over there, the general says, what do you think you are? And they say, we are the brave sons of Guru Gobind Singh. And the general sends two of his soldiers. They fight, the soldiers die, then he sends 4, and then he sends 8, and then he attacks. All of them attack at once, and they kill these two brothers. Garja Singh, Bhota Singh. And we might not even know, a lot of Sikhs don't even know the names. But these two brothers died just to say that ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਮਰ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਮਰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. Then you have similar story with Baba Deep Singh Ji. Similar story with Baba Deep Singh Ji, who comes to know there is one person who has humiliated Harmandir Sahib, captured Harmandir Sahib. ਐਡੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ, ਕੰਜਰੀਆਂ ਨਚਵਾਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਹਰਮੰਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਮੱਸਾ ਰੰਗੜ ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਸੀ. ਤੇ ਆਖਿਆ we need to get Harmandir Sahib back. And while walking,
we'll get back to that. But Massa Rangar that time wasn't it Sukha Singh Mehtab?
ਸੁੱਖਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਹਿਤਾਬ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਕਬਜ਼ਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਹਾਲੀ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਕੂਮਤ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀ.
Under his followers. Okay.
So then he goes on the way कि हरमंदर साहब ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਬਜ਼ੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਗਲਤ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ, he draws, and we see this photograph many times. Khanda again, he's drawing a line on the floor. And he drew the line on the floor and he says, today we are going, we're not going to come back. ਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਣਾ ਉਹੀ ਲਾਈਨ ਕ੍ਰਾਸ ਕਰੇ। Not easy, yeah? Just to think about it. And not only this, I would say, let's say character of Sikhs. This is the photograph of picture of Hari Singh Nalwa. A great soldier, I would say, a great general, but character, my God. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ the general of the opposite army wanted to somehow defeat him, but knew that as long as this man's character is firm, you cannot defeat him. So he requests his fifth or fourth beautiful Begum, and he says, listen, you have to seduce him.
Okay.
And he's staying in a tent in a certain place. Go there, do whatever you can, degrade this guy later, but seduce him to have, a personal relationship with you. And she goes, and Hari Singh Nalwa is resting in his tent, and the guard says, what do you want? And the lady says, I want to talk to him. And he sends her inside, and Hari Singh Nalwa says, yes Bibi ji, koi main todi madad kara. And she started praising, main sunaya Sikh bade great hunde ne, you guys are very brave, you guys are this and that, बड़ा कुछ करन तो बाद। एंड शी सेज कि मैं ना, मेरे घर औलाद नहीं हैगी, आई डोंट हैव अ किड। एंड ही सेज आई विल प्रे फॉर यू, मैं अल्लाह दे अगे अरदास करांगा कि ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦੇਵੇ। एंड शी सेज नहीं, पता की है, मेरी दिली ख्वाहिश यही रही है कि मेरी ਜਿਹੜੀ औलाद है ब्रेव होवे, सूरमा वर्गी होवे। एंड ही सेज मैं अरदास करांगा कि ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਘਰ सूरमा पैदा होवे। एंड देन शी सेज लेट मी सबस्टेंशिएट फॉर यू, I wish I had a child just like you. And Hari Singh says, well, if God really blesses you, I would say yes, you can definitely have, even mightier than me. And she says, no, let me rephrase it. I want a son from you. So he says, maine zara clarify karo, what do you mean by that? And she says, well, I want you to impregnate me. And he gets damn angry and he says, how dare you say that? I'm 20-30 years elder to you, तो मेरे इस तरह गल किते निकल जाए इथों। And she says, नहीं तुस ते मेरी गल दा बुरा मना के कहंदे बाहर निकल इथों बेबे। And while walking out, she turns around and she says, मैं सुनिया सी कि गुरु नानक दे दर ते या गुरु नानक दे सिख दे दर ते जो आंदा है खाली हाथ नहीं जाता, ते मैं मंग लैके आई सा ते मैं खाली हाथ चली हां। ओहो। एंड ही सेज बेबे रुक जा, वापस आ जा। मेक्स हर सिट डाउन एंड शी थिंक्स मेरा काम हो गया। एंड ही सिट्स ऑन द फ्लोर एंड ही टचेस हर फीट एंड शी सेज व्हाट द हेल आर यू डूइंग? ही सेज वेल, तेरी मंग सी कि तैनू मेरे वर्गा पुत्र चाहिदा है, ते मेरे वर्गा ते मैं ही हां, ते अज तो तू मेरी मां ते मैं तेरा पुत्र। And that was the kind of character. रो पई विचारी, कहंदी तुहाडे वर्गे बंदे दुनिया विच हुंदे ने। These were the people, और दा कारण सब तो वड्डा ਇਹ ਸੀ ਪਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਿਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ किंतु नहीं किया ज्यादा, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਪਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ किंतु ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। We doubt, we don't question. There's a big difference. If we just question, the question has an answer, but a doubt has no answer, because you're going with a preconceived notion that that is wrong anyway. ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਿੰਬਲ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇੱਕ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਮਾਰਕ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਹੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਆਨਸਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ। Let me share with you an example from that movie Karate Kid, the first one. in that movie, there is a boy who's got a trouble with some boys in school, and he wants to learn karate. So he goes to a master and he says, well, I don't know how to fight, so please teach me. And so this guy says, right, I'll teach you. You come tomorrow morning. And then he goes, and when he meets him, the master says, the first condition is, I teach, you learn, but no questions. You will not doubt me, you will not ask anything, you will just obey and learn. That's it. So the boy says, fine. In the morning when he's there, this master tells him, there is a whole floor, and what you have to do is scrub the floor with your right hand clockwise and left hand anti-clockwise. I don't really remember exactly, but he says sand the floor. I remember that. And then he goes do the whole floor, and by the time he's done, it's already in the evening. So he says, can I start learning my lesson now? So the master says, come tomorrow early, we start the lesson again. So the boy starts feeling by now that the master has taken advantage of me. I mean, he just wanted some work done. He hasn't even taught me anything, and here I am. I have to go back and learn nothing. But he complies. He just goes back in the morning. Next morning he comes again. He says, well, I'm ready. And the master says, paint the fence. And then, he tells him, well, you do the stroke up and down in a particular way, and you paint the whole fence of the house. And the boy has no choice but to do that because he wants to learn karate. The whole day passes by, not a single lesson learned. Not a single lesson learned. And in the evening, the master says, well, come again tomorrow. Now the doubt even becomes more. But he complies again. He goes back. Next morning he comes. Now the master is not even there. There is a can of paint lying outside the house, and says, paint the roof and the whole premise. And now the boy is really frustrated. He kicks the can, but he doesn't know what else to do. There is no other place to go and learn, and he's already invested 2 days of work with this guy, and he hasn't learned anything. He says, all right, I'll just do another 1 day. Maybe he's really got some work to do. So he paints the whole house, and at night what he sees is this master comes back from fishing. Now he's so furious. He goes to the master, he confronts him, and he says, you were making use of me. You were exploiting me. You were out there fishing. You were having fun, and I was doing all your job. Well, I'm done, man. I'm just going to go back. And he walks away. And at that same time, master says, well, just come back and show me what you learned on the first day. Sand the floor. And you do that, and then the master maybe kicks him, and he is able to protect himself with that sand the floor and paint the fence and the other move on the third day that he had been taught. And that all results, it all comes out that the master was actually teaching him karate, but in an indirect manner. And you have to, if you remember the movie, you will recall the look on the face of that boy when he discovers that all his anger on the master was so not called for, because the master was actually teaching him. He was learning everything that was supposed to be learnt in karate, but he thought the master is making use of him. And that's repentance in his eyes, if you remember the movie. And that's exactly what happened to us. We thought the master was there to take advantage of us. And what we forgot is the SIKH that we have been learning since childhood. The SIKH of Guru Nanak Dev Ji telling Guru Angad Dev Ji to fetch the bowl from the dirty pond. He was walking with the whole the Jatha along with his sons, and he purposely throws a cheap copper bowl in the mud. And he asks his eldest son, Baba Siri Chand, to please go and pick it up. And Baba Siri Chand says, Father, even my clothes are more expensive than the bowl. You have so many at home. Why do you need one? If it is gone, it's gone. He asks the second son, and the second son says, the brother is saying the right thing, Father. But he just has to look at Pailana and he goes running inside. And you can say Pailana was just trying to win the heart of the Guru and all, but the point was not that. The point was, you ask me, logically, Baba Siri Chand was not wrong.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Correct. But the point was not that, and somebody probably asked, and Pailana must have asked Guru Nanak Dev Ji later, why was that important? And Guru Nanak Padsha says, Lania, I wanted to give you the practice of what is going to come in future. In future you will see a lot of people in mud. And I wanted to tell you that to be able to get people out of mud, you have to enter the mud too.
Wow.
ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਚਿੱਕੜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੱਢਣਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਆਪ ਚਿੱਕੜ 'ਚ ਜਾਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਲੈਣਿਆ ਸਿਰਫ ਕੱਪੜਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਹ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ ਚਿੱਕੜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੱਢ ਸਕੋਗੇ Guru's each and every little test had a message ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ just like that boy in that movie you see his expression when the guy says sand the floor and color the fence he looks at that guy and in there is a point where he's not even there he's gone fishing and he kicks the can saying what the hell is going on this is cheating me you are utilizing me you're exploiting me and in the end he discovers ਉਸ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ actually they were helping me to learn better ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ parable ਯਾਦ ਆ ਗਈ Zen parable ਹੈ in that parable they say a man wanted to learn how to be able to become a master in knowing what green emeralds are
To tell whether they're real or fake.
yeah the study of that
Okay.
so in the olden times you didn't have those lens to see and all right so he goes to one person who's supposed to be the master of green emeralds and he's up on a high hill the guy goes there and he sits and he says I have come here to learn about green emeralds and the master asks him how much patience do you have and the guy says I'm here to learn sir as long as I don't learn I'm not going back so he says fine sit here and he sits there and he hands him one small emerald in his hand and then he says well today we will talk about green tea the benefits of green tea are this and the benefits of green tea are that and it goes the whole encyclopedia about green tea and doesn't say a word about emeralds then at the end of the day he takes the emerald bag and he says go come again tomorrow so the guy says I was here to learn at least something about green emeralds I thought he was going to start how to look at them and he didn't even say a word he says never mind I enjoyed the story anyway he comes back again next morning and then he makes him sit down hands him another piece of green emerald and he says today we're going to talk about green frogs well the green frogs camouflage this way they are green because they have a pigment and all that encyclopedia about green frogs and at the end of the day he takes the emerald bag and he says come again tomorrow and this whole silsila goes on for 6 months 6 months the guy says nothing about green emeralds hands him over one green emerald and he says come again tomorrow but after 6 months he hands him one green emerald and he says today we're going to talk about and he's there when the guy says well this is not emerald the guy says this is not emerald sir the master takes the emerald back and he says, you have learned the lesson. Go back. You're already a master in knowing what green emeralds are about. He speaks not a word about green emeralds and he teaches you green emeralds. And at times I say, the Guru may not talk about anything and he teaches you a lot. And this is what we see as Harmandir Sahib, and we say there are 4 doors to Harmandir Sahib. Look properly, the 4 doors represent that any religion, any caste, creed is welcome to the Darbar of the Guru. But the main entry inside the premise of Harmandir Sahib is only one. That is the entry here. The entry and the exit are one, and this is actually surrender.
It means
And
anyone can come, but there's only one path to
Path to the Guru is ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਹੈ. Surrender ਕਰ ਦਿਓਗੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੁਝ ਬਣ ਜਾਏਗਾ. Surrender ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਦੀ. This is what exactly Guru Gobind Singh Ji did. 1699 Vaisakhi, I say it's one of the greatest events in the history of mankind, because no Guru, no master ever tested his disciples the way he did. He said, "Mainu cease di lod hegi hai." 50,000 people were there. And the person who came up, and I say Bhai Davinder Singh Ji came up and said, "Guru mera sareer tere vaste, mera cease tere vaste, tu lena te le le, koi gall nahi." Koi sawal nahi puchya kyun? Akhe dharam di rakhya vaste mainu cease di lod hai. Kisi ne eh nahi puchya कि Guru Ji ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣ ਲੈਣ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ. ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਸਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਦਾਤ ਦੇਣਾ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਾਊਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ, ਭਾਈ ਦਇਆ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਡਾਊਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਵੈਨ ਧਰਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ saw the blood, the sword full of blood, he knew that he has already cut his head off, and yet he said, मेरे सीस दी लोड़ है ते ले लो. क्या बात है. And 5 of them. Now you ask me today, I say, ਅਸੀਂ criteria ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਤੇਰੇ criterias ਇਹ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, you do this, you do that. ਕੋਈ knowledgeable ਹੈ, ਕੋਈ ਬਲਵਾਨ ਬੜਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕੋ ਗੱਲ common ਸੀ. We don't even know ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਿਛੋਕੜ ਕੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਨ, what is their origin, what is their surname, etc. Nothing asked. ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੀ, ਜੋ ਤੋ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਖੇਲਣ ਕਾ ਚਾਹੋ ਸਿਰ ਧਰ ਤਲੀ ਗਲੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਆਓ, ਬਸ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸੀ. And this is something, let's say you are into music. ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ musical ਸਰਮਾਇਆ, wealth of music, ਕਿ ਬਾਣੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਗਾ ਕੇ, ਤੇ ਹਾਲੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟਸ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਗੇ. ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੰਨਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗਾਓ, ਗਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਓ. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ. Now I'll show you a few benefits according to the modern researchers. What are the benefits of, this is by Professor Graham Welch, education at the Institute of Education of Music, okay? And he says, the health benefits of singing are both physical and psychological. Singing has physical benefits because it's an aerobic activity that increases oxygenation in the bloodstream and exercises major muscles. All these things, if you see, singing has psychological benefits because normally positive effect in reducing stress levels. Sare de sare health benefits are equivalent to regular exercise, etc., etc. You can search it in the websites, and ladies love this, keeps you young and beautiful. Singing can make this and that. They sariya gifts. Read this one. It says, and the greatest gift of Guru Nanak was that he gave his Sikhs is the music, so they could find bliss while singing. He sang each hymn and had a companion who was a musician. There have been many joyous ways to nirvana, but none as wonderful and musical like Nanak's. And this was said by Osho. Aj ek khande di jekar asi gal kariye, that symbol of khanda, ਉਹਦੀ ਜੇ value ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝੀਏ, it was such a great one, ਪਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਘਾਲਣਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਸੀ. ਪਿੱਛੇ ਜੇ you watched that movie, YouTube we saw Taj. You watched that movie. It's a short movie. It's about 5-7 minutes movie. In that, two boys, they come back and there's a Hindu boy and a Sikh boy, and the Sikh boy takes off his turban and puts it on the table. And this Hindu boy is supposed to go out on the bike to buy a pack of noodles, and he just wears the turban and goes. You watched?
No.
Okay. So he goes with the turban on.
Okay.
He goes there to the market, and now he's feeling different but nobody else knows that he's not a Sikh. He is but he has a turban on. So he goes, and the moment he enters the shop where to buy the noodles, outside there is a person sitting and smoking, and that person stops smoking because he sees a Sardar coming. Now, to this guy who has no experience of being a Sardar, okay, he goes and he says, oh my God, that's the first sign of respect that I got. I mean, normally people would just smoke on your face, but here this guy quickly douses the cigarette because the Sardar is coming. So he goes inside the shop and he asks for a packet of noodles. And the shopkeeper gives him the noodle, and then he checks his pocket and he says, I'm sorry, I forgot the wallet here. Can you please give me? He says, hey, koi gal nahi Sardar ji, le jao. No problem, take it. वो ले ਜਾਂਦਾ है बाहर ते नौकर मालक ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਹੈ, आप तो जानते नहीं हो, तो ऐसे ही दे दिया. वो कहता है कोई बात नहीं, सरदार है, सरदारों की इज्जत है. And that guy hears it again. My God, just the turban? And he goes outside, and then he's standing at the on his bike, and he sees a very beautiful girl, and he's thinking in his mind, oh wow, beautiful girl. And then he sees her walking towards him. And she comes near him and she stands, and he says, my God, my day is made. And then she stands there and she says, can you please stand with me for a few moments? Because there are two guys opposite side of the road, and they're ogling at me and I feel unsafe. And then he's standing with her and those guys shoo off. And then she turns to him and she says, you have no idea. You guys are the saviors of the country. We feel so safe with you. Thank God for your presence, man. And she goes away, and this guy is so shaken up. His one-day experience of turban. He says, I never knew this is what a Sardar is about. He goes back and he's about to take his turban off. The Sikh boy lying down on the bed says, oh yaar, don't take it off lard by lard, just keep it, I have to tie it up like this tomorrow. And he turns back with a tear in his eyes and he says, eh, topi nahi hai bhau, eh sir da taaj hai, taaj. Oh ho ho. He says, enu topi na banayo, eh topi nahi hai, sir da taaj hai. But you see, what happens is, today what we are doing is we are just reaping the benefits of what people had sowed.
Yeah.
क्योंकि कालना उन्होंने काली सी, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਡਾਊਟ ਵਾਲੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਆ. ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਆ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਪਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਕਮਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ. ਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ, real life incident, okay? This is about 20-30 years ago. A few guys enter into a taxi, and the taxi driver is a Sardar. And those guys are making now, Sardar jokes, and 12 baje, oh, kinne baje ne, 12 baje, oh, 5 minute baki ne, and all that, the 12 baje they jokes. And after saying all that, right, when they reach the destination, the Sardar looks behind, and he tells the guy who was making the most jokes, he says, agli wari Sardar de utte joke karna hove na, beta, ele. He gives him a 50 stamp, 50 paisa. He says, go out today, in 24 hours, go find a Sardar who is a beggar. Give it to him. And if you can't, come back tomorrow and give me this back. And that guy says, I didn't understand this. He goes and he's not able to search. He comes back the next day, gives him back, and he says, Beta, जिन्ना सरदारां दा तुसी मजाक उड़ांदे हो, उन्हां ने कदी भिख्या भी नहीं लिती, उन्हां ने कदी भिख्या भी मंगी नहीं हैगी। तुहानूं सरदार एक भिखारी भी लभना इंडिया दे विच 30 साल पहला मुश्किल सी, almost impossible. That was the kind of spirit was given to the Sikhs by their gurus, because those guys did what the guru said. ਉਹ ਕਾਲਣਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਲੀ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਖੰਡਾ ਬਣਿਆ ਸੀ। ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ imagine this part, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, it's just like this one, you know, the green emerald one, and you learn so much from there without realizing. This is one of them. Kada Prasad.
I still don't realize.
And according to me, this is one of the greatest philosophies given by the Sikh gurus. When somebody died or somebody was born, the atmosphere, of course, would be different. Means at the times of sadness or tragic times, we would distribute very bland food. And Punjab de vich vande ne phul mukane, you know, like popcorn, right. Something like that, yeah. But very bland, so that people know that this is a sad time. And during happy hours, what do? Mithai.
Yes.
Mitha. What did the Guru do? The Guru said, according to the Sikh philosophy, Sukh Dukh Dono Samkar Jane, Aur Maan Apmana, Hark Sogte Rahe Atita, Tin Jagta To Pachana. He said, you have to rise above happiness and sadness, and you have to be able to come to Anand. So he said, I will give you one gift. And you know how's Kada Prasad made? We mix it. It's a mixture of flour, sugar,
oil,
ghyo,
okay,
pani.
Yeah,
that's it. And you take equal amounts of flour and sugar to make Kada Prasad.
Bland and sweet.
Flour is bland and sugar is sweet. To say, mix both of them in equal amounts and distribute on every occasion. Bachcha jamda hai, asi Kada Prasad karaande hain.
Don't discriminate between the occasions. Like
between the occasions. Wow. And we say, let's say somebody gets married, Kada Prasad. Because listen, don't just get married for happiness or the joy of it. There will be hard times. There will be tough times. And you have to understand the flour in the Kada Prasad says, if you accepted Kada Prasad at that time, you have to be able to come to that Anand and say, Tera kiya meetha lage. Asan nahi hai, not easy. But I'm saying, just one little gift that we go to Gurdwara and we say, Kada Prasad milya bada hai. And a lot of times people don't even take Kada Prasad, pura bhi nahi lende, si kene swaya ji. थोड़ा जा दे दे जी, गुलाब जामुन दो देना पर कड़ा प्रसाद खाया जी, थोड़ा जा दो. And when it comes to hair, let me share a story with you. A child was telling his father, Dad, I don't see the point. You know, I get those knots in the hair and I get so disturbed. I can't even comb them properly. Why can't I just cut the hair a bit? And the father says, let me explain this to you. And he takes the hair of the child, knotted hair, and he puts a little oil and he starts separating them. And he says, Beta, remember this, okay? In life, there will be troubles. There will be problems. Treat the troubles of life just like these knots. Put the oil of love and Gyan di Kangi, the comb of wisdom or knowledge, and separate the problems and tackle the problems. if you use that cutting the problem attitude, you will always find the short way to life. Problems aaye ne, you have differences, you have differences of opinion among people. Sit down and clear them out. But you can use the other way also. You can say, sorry, you go your way, I go my way. And that's the whole world is suffering because of this attitude. We say, cut. छोटियां छोटियां गल्लां ने. मैं नहीं कहता कि Sikhism is equal to है. नहीं. सगों मैं कहता देखो, I was thinking to have this identity. This is beautiful, but it's not equating to Sikhism, because Sikhism's philosophy is beyond, is beautiful. Okay? An identity of a Sikh is wonderful, but it comes from three angles today, I would say. Number one, people keep hair because my father says, and I'm going to listen to my father, and that's it. Number two category are those who say, mere guru da hukam hai. मैं ये भी नहीं कहूँगा you keep hair because they are living cells and then nail problem आ जाएगी, you know. नहीं, गुरु दा हुक्म हैगा तुसी अपने केसां दी बेदबी नहीं करनी, गल खत्म. And I tell you this, a lot of times I feel if you surrender to the hukam of the guru, you are saving yourself a lot of headache. Sorry to say, today if you ask me, logically speaking, smoking or not smoking, and I can give you thousands of reasons to say smoking is valid.
Okay.
One of the reasons, the other day somebody was telling me, he says, give me a logic here, sir. You go outside, you smoke in so much car fumes, isn't that hazardous to health? You're smoking all that carbon monoxide. So how is one cigarette gonna harm me? Logically, when you speak about logic, a lot of people can give. But then I say, when a person surrenders to the Guru, he says, nahi, gal khatam, main logic vich nahi pehna. Main smoke nahi karna, main drink nahi karna, gal khatam ho gayi. Main hali tonu, main aj padda paya sa. Ede vich alcohol di gal aandi hai. Abnormal psychology.
Okay.
And it talks about alcohol. And just in one page, I can shock you. One peg of whiskey provides about 1,200 calories.
What?
Oh.
Here.
What?
Drinking a peg of whiskey provides about 1,200 calories. Since alcohol has no nutritional value, the excessive drinker often suffers from malnutrition.
Okay.
When the alcohol content of bloodstream reaches 0.1%, the individual is said to be intoxicated. When the blood alcohol reaches approximately 0.5%, the entire neural balance is upset and the individual passes out, unconscious. 0.1% to 0.5%. And on top of that, it's not the alcohol that you drink, it's how much is consumed by the body that matters. Do you ever wonder, you take 2 spoons of medicine that has alcohol and you start feeling drowsy?
Yeah.
Why? Because that much the body sees it as a medicine, and that is pulled by the blood. It goes into the bloodstream, so it relaxes your nerves. And not only that, this alcohol is called as a catalyst for violence, including homicide, assault and rape, because it is a depressant. Here. Eventually, however, individual's behavior becomes coarse and inappropriate, loses respect, responsibility, and becomes generally touchy and irritable about his drinking. But in the beginning, it says, although it's seemingly useful crutch for dealing with stresses of life, especially during periods of acute stress, but if you keep on, this is what happens, and then his personal disorganization and deterioration starts. Because alcohol is a depressant which attacks the nerves and higher brain centers, impairing judgment and other rational processes and lowering self-control. Some degree of motor incoordination soon becomes apparent, and the drinker's sense of discrimination and perception of cold, pain, and other discomforts are dulled. That's why a drunkard might fall on the pavement of a road and not even feel anything, and start crying tomorrow morning because now he's sore. And ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੜੀਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵਾਂ ਬੜਾ ਲੱਕੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਦਮੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਵੇ ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੀਣੀ, ਗੱਲ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਪਏ ਸਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਮੰਨ ਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਸਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ। ਨਹੀਂ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ। He is like that karate teacher. We thought he is exploiting us. He is not. He is making use of our life for us, not for himself. ਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਸਮਝਿਆ, ਅੱਛਾ third point ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ, I said those who keep hair, not just because what the Guru says, but there is a third category also, and there comes Osho and probably Sadhguru.
Yeah.
You see their appearance? It's the spiritual aspect where
Ramdev.
Even Ramdev,
Even
Shri, yeah. A lot of them who have not cut their hair is because they come to a spiritual point where they say, I don't need to impress anybody physically. I'm fine. I have the virtue. Their virtues are so beautiful that they influence people. But sad thing here, I'm sorry to say, आज पता की हो गया, असी impose किता होया है, असी उन्हां उत्ते अपनी ए identity impose कीती हुई है जिन्हां दे अंदर values कोई नहीं है किया। A lot of Sikh boys are just looking to woo girls and having the attire of probably a Sadhguru or an Osho or a Guru Gobind Singh or a Guru Nanak. But ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ mentality ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ is just the next door boys. ਉਹ ਹਾਲੀ ਕਲੱਬਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। That is why when he goes to the Gurdwara he wears a turban, but he goes to a club he wears a hat because there he feels ashamed. ਅਸੀਂ impose ਕਰ ਬੈਠੇ ਹਾਂ। ਹੋਣਾ ਇਹ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ values ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਖੰਡੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵੈਲਿਊਜ਼ ਨੇ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਸਿੰਬਲ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਾਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖੋ। ਜੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਗਈਆਂ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਸਰੂਪ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ। There's somebody asked Osho when he was alive, said, you have long hair, you have long beard, you haven't cut your hair, are you promoting Sikhism? And I remember reading, I don't have the CD with me today. He said, no, I'm not promoting Sikhism, but I can say this to you. If you walk a spiritual path, this will be your inevitable attire. And somebody asked him, and you ask me, he was one of the people who thrashed each and every religion. Right? कोई ऐसा धर्म नहीं जेड़ा के उन्हें thrash ना कीता होवे. But in the end, even in his followers, one thing he gave, an identity. A robe with a mala and a photograph of Osho in their neck, that he gave. Why? जे धर्म दी भी लोड़ नहीं हैगी है, जे किसे क्लासिफिकेशन दी लोड़ नहीं हैगी, ते फिर आइडेंटिटी देने दी की लोड़ है। और मजे दी गल है, ओदी आइडेंटिटी ते ऐसी है जिहड़ी ला के तुसी परां भी सुट सकदे हो। आज सवेरे तुसी पाई है, you can take it out in the evening. But probably Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who went through those times, I was reading somewhere, they said, do you know the impact of Guru Tegh Bahadur Padshah's passing away or his sacrifice? Imagine your Guru being sacrificed in the middle of Chandni Chowk. And after his head has been cut off, there is not a single Sikh who came forward to say, mere Guru da sees hai mainu de diyo. and don't mind me, thousands of people were gathered to watch that incident. And when no one came forward to get, and Lakshishal Banjara, he actually took it in the middle of the storm. Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, I know the Sikhs were there, but nobody came forward. They hid in the crowd. Don't worry, मैं तुहानू एहो जी आइडेंटिटी देंगा, क्राउड भी होएगा, तुसी अपने आप नू हाइड नहीं कर सकोगे. एंड ऐ दित्ती उन्हें सन, तुसी हाइड नहीं कर सकते हो. ते जेड़े हाइड करदे ने वो इस वास्ते करदे ने क्योंकि शर्म हैगी है, जो कर रहे ने वो करना नहीं चाहते. एक हिस्टोरिकल इंसिडेंट हैगी है, मैं कल पढ़ी सी. एक बाजार दे विच एक खोता सी, एंड दिस इज हिस्टोरिकल. एक बाजार च एक खोता सी, goes to the sabzi market and people would just shoo it off and it would bray and get insulted, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji passed, saw that donkey, brought it back home, and he didn't let anybody know. He had been presented with a tiger skin. Somebody had presented him with a tiger skin. So what he did, he wanted to play a prank. He put the tiger skin on the donkey. Okay? And he left the donkey open back into the market. Now everyone who was making fun of the donkey, they ran away. And then the Sikhs and the villagers, they went to be able to capture the tiger, the lion, and ultimately when the donkey brayed, they came to know, oh, मत मारी गई सी साडी, ये ते खोता है, ये शेर नहीं है. ਜਦੋਂ ਵਾਪਸ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖੂਬ ਮਜ਼ਾਕ ਕੀਤਾ, ਸਾਰੇ ਹੱਸਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਏ. ਐਂਡ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਬੜੇ ਸਾਇਲੈਂਟਲੀ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸੋ ਉਸ ਖੋਤੇ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਛਾਣ ਲਿਆ, ਉਹ ਤੇ ਖੋਤਾ ਸੀ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਖਲ ਸੀ. ਇੱਥੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖੋਤੇ ਨੇ ਪਰ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਸਿਰਫ ਖਲ ਪਾਈ ਹੈ? ਹਾਊ ਮਨੀ ਆਫ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਹੇਅਰ? ਜ਼ਰਾ ਵੇਖੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੰਦਰ, ਕਿਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖੋਤੇ ਹੋ ਸਾਰੇ, ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਹੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਇੰਗ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗਰਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਹਾੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਰਦੇ. ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੇ ਖੋਤੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਬ੍ਰੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹਿੰਗਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ. And they all became silent. He said, I wanted to test, I wanted to send you a message that if I say you become lions, you become lions. And you become lions in the sense, says, what matters most is how you see yourself. ਇੱਥੇ ਪੁੱਠਾ ਸਾਹਬ ਹੈ. ਇੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਵੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਸ਼ੀਸ਼ੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਬਿੱਲੀ ਆ. You were supposed to be unique. देखो, when the slogan says सवा लाख से एक लड़ाऊं, we take it very physically. We think there were 125,000 soldiers of the opposite army and one Sikh was able to fight 125,000. That was not the point. When he says सवा लाख से एक लड़ाऊं, he says to me, if you are a quality person, your one presence is equal to 125,000 quantity but no quality. If that is only quantity, I don't want quantity. ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ figures ਇਕੱਠੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਹਾਂ. Sikhism has become the 5th largest religion in the world. ਇੰਨੀ ਸਾਡੀ population ਹੈਗੀ ਜੀ, ਇੰਨਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਾਇਆ ਜੀ. ਇੱਕ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦਾ, ਇੱਕ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਆਂਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਲ 30,000 ਨੂੰ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਾਇਆ, ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਲੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਾਇਆ. ਫਿਗਰਸ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਨਾ,
ਪੋਪੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਉਨੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਏ. ਯਾ
ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਛਕਾਣਾ, ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਗਾਣੀ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਇਸ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮੁੱਲ ਹੈ. ਇਹ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਪਈ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਹੈ. Actually, ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲਹਿਰਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ, when you are hungry and you don't have a place to stay, look from far. Any building that has a Nishan Sahib, you can rest assured you will get food, shelter, protection there. And what did the Nyang Singhs do in the olden times? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੁਮਾਲੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਸਨ ਨਾ, it was a shortened form of Nishan Sahib on their head, meaning if you look at me, I am carrying the Nishan Sahib on my head. You can get food, shelter, protection from me also. And this was supposed to be the character of a Sikh. ਤੇ ਜੇ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਖੋਤੇ ਹੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਖੱਲ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਾਈਏ ਪਰ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ। ਤੇ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਕਰੈਕਟਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਕਰੈਕਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੀ ਬਣਨੀ। ਇਹਦੀ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਬੜੀ ਹੈ ਖੰਡੇ ਦੀ, ਇਹਦੀ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਇੰਨੀ ਹੈ ਭਾਜੀ ਕਿ in 100 years of going through 2 holocausts, ਵੱਡਾ ਘੱਲੂਘਾਰਾ and ਛੋਟਾ ਘੱਲੂਘਾਰਾ, we were able to rise and we became the kings of Punjab in 100 years. That was the power of Sikhs. Today I can say Sikhs are one of the richest communities in the world as per capita. Bhikhari labna te badi dur di gall hai, par Sikhs de vich jinni wealth hegi hai, and all that is why. Don't give me that. ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ because of my case I have discrimination, people don't hire me, this and that. ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਰਾਜੇ ਬਣਾਇਆ। One of the greatest businessmen today are Sikhs because they wouldn't get jobs anywhere. So what? ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਥੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੀ। That's a Sikh. I like the story of Akal Security. You heard about him, right?
I've heard about it.
You have?
But I don't know the full story. I know it's like American Khalsa type.
Yeah, he went for a job. He went for a job in a security company. He goes inside and they look at him and they say, sorry, we'll have to reconsider. If you are able to take your appearance, make it normal, people won't be scared. So if you can consider that, we can hire you. Otherwise, sorry. So he goes out. That's how I read the story. He goes out of the interview room and he says, Guru da bada shukar. Probably he doesn't want me to be an employee. And he gathers a few people, his friends, and he says, let's open up a security company. And a few years ago, it was the top 10 security companies in the US.
I heard about it being the top, yeah.
Yeah, and 1,000 employees. And one day my friend lands in Hawaii, I think about 10 years ago. He lands in Hawaii and he said, I got the shock of my life. I thought I have come to Punjab. The whole airport security was full of Khalsas because that year they got the contract
Okay.
for the airport. This was what I say, the power behind the Khanda. ਤੇ ਜੇ ਇਹ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲੋਕੀ ਜਾਣ ਸਕਣਗੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਲਿਬਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿਣਗੇ। ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਆਂਟੀਟੀ ਵਧਾਓ, ਪਰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕੁਆਂਟੀਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਵਧਾਣੀ, ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ। ਵਧੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਮੇਨ ਪਰਪਸ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ ਟੂ ਲੁੱਕ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਵੱਧਦੀ ਪਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ। ਤੇ ਜੇ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਵਧੇਗੀ ਤੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਵਧਣਗੇ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਖੰਡੇ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਵਧੇਗੀ। ਤੇ ਜੇ ਨੀਰੀ ਕੁਆਂਟੀਟੀ ਵਧੇਗੀ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਸੌਰੀ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨਾ, ਸਿਰਫ ਅਸੀਂ ਖੋਤੇ ਵਧਾਂਗੇ, ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਖੱਲ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਉੱਤੇ, ਪਰ ਅੰਦਰ ਜੀਵਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣੇਗਾ। ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹੀ ਸਿੰਬਲਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਜਾਏਗੀ। People look at you, people look at us as a symbol of Sikhs. We represent something. And I say a Sikh, when he walks, he has to understand he's not an ordinary person. He's a unique person. He walks with the dignity of what Guru Gobind Singh Ji had. Bas any gal aa jave, you will never go wrong. Tusi kadi kise di jeb nahi maroge. Tusi kide kise naal dhokha nahi karoge. Tusi kise di izzat te haath nahi paoge. Tuhadi nigah badal jayegi. Your view of life will change. You don't have to do anything. Your whole life's transformation is if you value what you are, what you carry, and how you carry yourself. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.